The $300 million man just dropped a truth bomb that the Saudi PIF has been trying to hide for months. Standing at a podium in Virginia with LIV's future hanging by a thread, Jon Rahm did something no other LIV star has dared to do. He admitted the quiet part out loud. "I don't see many ways out." He confessed the funding crisis caught everyone off guard. He revealed players will have to take less money, and then he compared his own situation to a soccer team whose coach has already resigned. The golf world is reeling because if Jon Rahm, the $300 million man, is worried, what does that mean for everyone else? The date was May 5, 2026, Trump National Golf Club in Sterling, Virginia. LIV Golf's Washington, D.C. event was about to begin, and the media center was packed with reporters who had flown in from around the world. They weren't there to ask about the course or the field or the $30 million purse. They were there for one reason. Jon Rahm was about to speak. The 31-year-old Spaniard had been silent for weeks, ever since the bombshell news broke that the Saudi Public Investment Fund would pull its funding after the 2026 season. The golf world had been waiting for the $300 million man to say something, anything. Rahm had been golf's most expensive defector, the reigning Masters champion who left the PGA Tour in December 2023 for a reported contract worth $300 million to $500 million over multiple years. If LIV was collapsing, his future was the canary in the coal mine. When Rahm stepped to the microphone, he didn't dance around the subject. He didn't offer platitudes about staying positive or trusting the process. He looked the reporters in the eye and told them exactly what he thought. "Right now, I have several years in my contract left," Rahm said. "I'm pretty sure they did a pretty good job when they drafted that, so I don't see many ways out." Let me read that again. "I don't see many ways out, not I'm exploring my options, not I have a team working on it." A flat, honest admission from the most valuable player on the LIV roster that he was trapped. The contract he signed, the one that made him the face of the Saudi rebellion, was ironclad and he knew it. The reporters pressed further. What about the news that the PIF was pulling its funding? Had he seen it coming? Had the players been warned? Rahm's answer was as startling as his confession. "I think the initial news and the rumors over there in Mexico, since we're in a tournament week, I almost just tried to act as if it was just rumors," he admitted. "For me, the reality kind of came afterwards. I would say like everybody, surprised, obviously unexpected. We did hear the news that there would be funding for many years. But then, as the future of the league goes, I think that's obviously a question for the business people." Surprised, unexpected. The $300 million man had been blindsided. While the golf world was dissecting Jon Rahm's bombshell confession about his LIV contract, he dropped another piece of news that was almost lost in the chaos. The standoff with the DP World Tour was over. The Ryder Cup was back on. For months, Rahm had been locked in a bitter dispute with the European Tour. He had refused to pay the fines he accrued for playing in LIV events that conflicted with DP World Tour tournaments. The fines were steep, approximately $2 million or about $2.5 million. His refusal to pay made him ineligible for DP World Tour events, and that ineligibility put his participation in the 2027 Ryder Cup at Adair Manor in serious jeopardy. The clock was ticking. The Ryder Cup is the pinnacle of European golf. For a player of Rahm's stature, a former world number one, a two-time major champion, the heartbeat of the continental team, missing Adair Manor would have been a disaster. Not just for him, for the entire European side. "There is no longer a standoff," Rahm told reporters at Trump National Golf Club in Sterling, Virginia. "We were able to reach an agreement. There were some concessions on both sides and I offered some. They extended an olive branch so that will not be a stress anymore." Rahm is not the type of player Europe would want to be missing at the 2027 matches. He has played in 4 Ryder Cups with Europe, winning 3 of them, including the last 2 in Rome and New York. He is a leader in the locker room. He is a force on the course, and now he will be available for Luke Donald's team at Adair Manor. The agreement came with strings attached. Rahm will pay all outstanding fines accrued from 2024 to date. He will also be required to play in agreed-upon DP World Tour tournaments for the remainder of the 2026 season. Outside of the major championships, the DP World Tour and Jon Rahm have come to an agreement on conditional releases to play in conflicting tournaments on LIV Golf during the remainder of its 2026 season. A DP World Tour spokesperson said this involves payment of all outstanding fines accrued from 2024 to date along with participation in agreed DP World Tour tournaments outside the majors in the remainder of the 2026 season. The agreement puts Rahm in the same category as 8 other LIV players who settled their disputes with the DP World Tour in February. Tyrrell Hatton, Tom McKibben, David Puig and others had already taken the deal. Rahm had held out, calling the DP World Tour's demands extortion just 2 months ago, but the collapse of Saudi funding changed the calculation. With LIV's future in doubt, the balance of power had shifted back to the traditional tour. Rahm needed the DP World Tour more than the DP World Tour needed him. He blinked. "I offered some. They extended an olive branch," Rahm said, choosing his words carefully. "The settlement brings with it a significant schedule commitment. He will almost certainly play the Spanish Open in Madrid this fall, as well as several other European events between the PGA Championship and the end of the season." The long stalemate between the former Masters champion and the DP World Tour has finally concluded on the eve of a critical stretch of the season. But while the Ryder Cup crisis was averted, the bigger question remained unanswered. What happens to LIV Golf, and what happens to Jon Rahm if the league collapses? Just when the golf world thought Jon Rahm had said enough, he reached for an analogy that painted the most honest picture yet of LIV Golf's existential crisis. Speaking in Spanish at the end of his press conference, Rahm compared his situation to that of a soccer player whose coach has already resigned. The players still have to compete, the matches still have to be played, the trophies still have to be chased, but the uncertainty hangs over everything like a cloud that won't lift. You know you have to play, but there is ambiguity because maybe you are not going to follow the same system. Rahm said the analogy was a dagger through every LIV Golf promotional video ever produced. The league had spent 5 years and $5 billion promising stability, promising a new future for professional golf, promising that the Saudi checkbook would never close, and now its biggest star was openly admitting that the system was changing, that the future was uncertain, and that no one knew what came next. Rahm's reference to His Excellency was particularly pointed. Yasser Al-Rumayyan, the governor of the Saudi Public Investment Fund, had been LIV's most visible champion. He had attended events. He had posed for photos with players. He had spoken at press conferences about the league's bright future. And now, according to Rahm, Al-Rumayyan had stepped down as LIV's chairman. "It was a surprise for everyone. We didn't expect it after the support that His Excellency has given us," Rahm admitted. The confession was extraordinary. The $300 million man was admitting that he had been blindsided, that the promises of long-term funding had been broken, that the man who had sold him on the LIV vision had walked away. But Rahm's most revealing comments came when he was asked about the players' role in LIV's future. If the league was going to survive, it would need new investors. And if it needed new investors, it would need to generate revenue. And if it needed to generate revenue, the lavish prize money that had attracted the world's best players might have to be reduced. "I do believe that for the business plan to change, whatever they're coming up with, there will need to be some concessions on players' part," Rahm said. Let me read that again. The $300 million man just told the world that LIV Golf players will have to take less money. Less prize money, fewer guaranteed millions, a scaled-back version of the league that had promised unlimited riches. The confession was stunning, but it was also honest. And in a golf world starved for transparency, Jon Rahm had just delivered it in spades. Jon Rahm's bombshell confession about the funding crisis was stunning enough, but what he revealed about his own contract sent an even deeper chill through the golf world. Standing at the podium in Sterling, Virginia, the $300 million man was asked directly about his future. If LIV Golf collapsed, if the Saudi money ran out, if the league he had bet his career on ceased to exist, what would happen to him? Rahm's answer was as honest as it was terrifying. "Right now I have several years in my contract left," Rahm told reporters. "I'm pretty sure they did a pretty good job when they drafted that, so I don't see many ways out." Let me read that again. "I don't see many ways out, not I'm exploring my options, not I have a team working on it." A flat, honest admission from the most valuable player on the LIV roster that he was trapped. The contract he signed, the one that made him the face of the Saudi rebellion, was ironclad, and he knew it. The timing of this confession was devastating. Just days earlier, the Saudi Public Investment Fund had announced it would pull its funding from LIV Golf after the 2026 season. The league that had spent $5 billion buying the sport's biggest stars was suddenly on life support. And the players who had signed those 9-figure contracts were left wondering if their golden handcuffs would become lead weights. Rahm's contract is believed to be worth approximately $300 million to $500 million signed when he left the PGA Tour in December 2023. The exact terms have never been disclosed, but whatever the number, Rahm made it clear that he was not going anywhere. "Whether he wanted to or not, I'm not really thinking about it because we still have a season to play and majors to compete for," Rahm said, deflecting the question. "It's not something I want to think about just yet." But the golf world was already thinking about it, and the implications were staggering. The PGA Tour had rewritten its rules in December to allow LIV players to return, but only for those who had won majors or the Players' Championship between 2022 and 2025. Brooks Koepka had taken that deal. Patrick Reed had not renewed his LIV contract and was now playing on the DP World Tour. Rahm, Bryson DeChambeau and Cameron Smith had all turned down the limited-time offer. Now, with the Saudi funding drying up, the door to the PGA Tour might still be open, but the terms would almost certainly be worse. Billy Horschel, speaking on the Sky Sports Golf podcast, predicted exactly that. When you are selling a house and a person doesn't agree when they come back, that offer is not on the table, Horschel said. Rahm avoided the question, but the answer was written on his face. Jon Rahm revealed a shocking truth about LIV Golf's funding crisis, and the golf world is absolutely stunned. The $300 million man stood at a podium in Virginia and did something no other LIV star has dared to do. He admitted the quiet part out loud. I don't see many ways out of his contract. He confessed the funding crisis caught everyone off guard. He revealed players will have to take less money. He compared his situation to a soccer team whose coach has already resigned. And then just when the golf world thought the bombshells were over, he announced that his bitter standoff with the DP World Tour was finally over. The Ryder Cup is back on. He will pay his fines, play European events, and be eligible for Luke Donald's team at Adair Manor in 2027. But the $300 million man's settlement was just the beginning. The real question, the one no one can answer, is what happens when LIV Golf runs out of Saudi money. Jon Rahm doesn't know, Scott O'Neill does know, and that uncertainty changes everything. Do you think Jon Rahm will be stuck at LIV even if the league collapses, or will the PGA Tour find a way to bring him back? Drop your take in the comments below. And if you want the real story behind every bombshell, every contract, and every power shift in golf, hit that subscribe button because this story is far from over.